Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of VMLMTG. We are a 10-week-long Magic the Gathering League showcasing the talents of amazing people of marginalized genders within the Magic community. My name is Nicole Callahan, also known as Lady of the Crease, and I am joined tonight by the fabulous, needs no introduction, honestly, Arya Karamchandani, also known as HogPog98, also known as our Season 6 VML MTG champion. So where's the crown?
I don't know. I thought I had it around here somewhere, but apparently not.
Well, it's awesome to have you on. It's awesome to be, I guess we're not really kicking off the new season. We're kind of kicking it along. But a big thank you to our sponsors for making this season possible. NRG Series, big ups to them. Wizards of the Coast, and our new sponsor this season, Good Luck High Five. They are awesome. If you have not checked out their podcast, amazing, amazing people. Maria and Megan, both fantastic and huge supporters of us here at the VML. So big thanks to all of our sponsors for making this possible. Season number 7. We're week 2, season 7. I feel like it's getting serious now. So, and speaking of serious, check out this prize pool. It grows every season. $4,000 cash split between our top 16. We're doing 500 gems per league win during the round robin rounds. That's the first 7 weeks. And as we have in the past, we are sending our first place winner to the Streets of New Capenna Scent Championship, which is super exciting. Last season, we had the honor and pleasure of sending Arya. Well, we will have the honor and pleasure of sending Arya to the Set Championship that will be happening next Friday. So I'm hoping that all of you VML fans are tuning in to cheer Arya on before our broadcast next Friday. But whoo, that was a lot. I feel like I've been waiting like weeks to get all that out. I've been so excited to be back, so it feels real good to be back. How are you doing tonight, Arya?
I'm doing really well. Really excited for the set championship and for the night's matches. There's a bunch of really exciting matchups. Standard has like maybe been slightly less of a focus for a few of the tournaments. It's not a format for the set championship coming up, and that means it's like really unexplored and really something of the Wild West out there. So lots of different super cool decks today.
No, totally agree. We do try to showcase a nice variety of different decks. So you'll see a little bit of Runes, a little bit of Rakdos Sacrifice, a little bit of Orzhov, and a little bit of spice too. as always, you can count on the VML for that. But I mean, I'm looking forward to kind of just diving right in here because, like you said, Standard, it's sort of a Wild West. Like things got a real big shakeup right after our last season. What was it, 2-3 days afterwards? They were like, oh, by the way, we're banning All Runs Epiphany and Faceless Haven and all these like all these staples for all these decks that everybody played all last season. So as we look, one of the biggest winners that I've noticed so far is Naya Runes. And we see Daniela bringing that this week. What are your thoughts on this deck? Just not really coming out of nowhere, but sort of coming out of nowhere and in multiple formats as well.
Yeah, it's been really impressive for me. Showdown of the Skulls is a good card, and no deck plays Showdown of the Skulls more regularly and often or more times than this deck. So really, it's been very impressive just in its reliability of casting that spell over and over. And then with the runes package with the naturalist, this deck really abuses Showdown of the Skulls too, often casting like 4 or 5 spells and killing you in a single turn. So it's been really impressive, both in terms of its resiliency and its reliability of finding its engine.
No, and it's a nice low curve, being able to kind of pile on. The deck can get out of control really quick. So we'll see how Daniela will manage that tonight as we take a look at her opponent here. Wyatt here on the other side brought Orzhov Midrange, which has been a popular archetype in Standard for the most part, but this one looks a bit different. We see some sagas in here. There's your wedding announcements and things like that, Meat Hook Massacre. But 4 Silver Quill Silencer, I suppose, is a lot better when you're playing in an open deck list tournament like this, playing week to week.
Yeah, the card's shown up in a few different Orzhov decks over the last few weeks. It's definitely been seeing an uptick in play, and open deck lists are certainly part of it. But also, when you're looking to play against decks like Runes, decks that'll find some of their most important cards several times in a game and will cast them several times in a game, when your Runes opponent is going to need to cast like 2 or 3 copies of Rune of Might or Rune of Speed to be able to even function, then getting triggers off a Silver Quill Silencer many times over the course of the game is really, really powerful. So that makes it somewhat better position than it used to be.
Oh, for sure. And we see Wyatt saying that they know that their removal in this matchup is very important, needing to build card and board advantage that they will need to answer. So we'll see if Wyatt's removal will be able to keep up with Daniela's explosiveness here in match number 1. Again, we have Daniela on the bottom on Naya runes. We have Wyatt on the top with Orzhov mid-range. Any thoughts on these opening hands here? A 1-lander on Daniela's side.
Yeah, 1 lander, not ideal. Even in a deck as low curve as this, Runes struggles a little bit with that because you need to not run too many lands to flood out with all of the all of the card draw you have, but you also need to ensure you have enough colored mana sources. And this is a deck with a lot of intense color requirements.
Yes, and it looks like Wyatt will keep their 7. Daniela happy with the 6 and going to ship back the commune here, which in favor of keeping a Runeforge champion and a rune package to start.
Yeah, I think that makes sense against a deck like Orzhov. This hand gives the most potential for an explosive draw. If she draws something like Naturalist, then she could perhaps drain off several runes in the same turn. And she kind of does need to find something to be able to win here. The commune could have been useful for trying to dig towards a showdown, but with no early creature, it makes sense for her to just hope to get an early creature and try and go off with Runeforge Champion the runes after that.
And here's an interesting play that I see Runes players do often when they kind of get stuck and don't have any early plays as far or being able to put any early threats onto the battlefield. They kind of just cycle their rune. They put a rune onto a land just to kind of draw a card and hope that they can build up some threats.
Yeah, it's not putting a rune on a land like Daniela had to do here is definitely not ideal for the deck because what the deck really wants is to be able to, if not put runes on your creatures, at least put runes on things that are going to go to the graveyard so you can fetch them later with Runeforge Champion. So definitely putting the rune on the land is kind of the worst fail case, but even that isn't too bad, and I think that's demonstrative of like the deck's flexibility. It's this aggro combo deck, but all its pieces still do something, even if you don't have the payoffs for them.
And we see, speaking of payoffs, we see the oh gosh, the restoration of Iganjo. Excuse me. Sorry. I was going to trip up on that. Getting some value here, being able to discard and play a planes. Getting that Legion Angel into play as well. A little heavy on 4-drops on Wyatt's side, but I don't know if they mind since they are consistently making their land drops, and a card like the Wandering Emperor have seen that make an impact in some of these Orzhov decks as well as mono white decks lately. What is your thoughts on the Wandering Emperor as a card in Standard?
Yeah, the Wandering Emperor, it's been pretty impressive in Standard, but here particularly, I think it's one of Wyatt's best cards in this matchup. It's one of the few tools to remove things at instant speed because there's remove things at instant speed and go up on value. Generally, when you're removing something like a Generous Visitor, it's already put counters somewhere, or Runeforge Champion has already drawn cards. And the Wandering Emperor kind of breaks that symmetry by providing a removal spell that's also going to just be a Planeswalker that'll get value afterwards. So it's one of the better tools for fighting the long game in this matchup.
We'll see some of these +1/+1 counters from Generous Visitor being split up among Runeforge Champion and the Visitor itself. Wyatt tapped out at the moment, so Daniela not really needing to worry about attacking into that open 4 mana, which can be a scary thing. And we'll see a Paladin class here, a card I haven't really seen that often in Runes lists either.
Yeah, it's an unconventional one In part because the runes deck is really, really reliant on all of its enchantments drawing a card. But it makes sense that Daniela is running it here, particularly if she expected there to be some chance of some blue-based deck, because it's still a cheap enchantment that prevents your opponent from being able to interact a bunch on your turn, which is something the runes deck can sometimes struggle against.
Oh, and we'll see a Wandering Emperor being played at on Wyatt's own turn here to take care of the Runeforge champion before Daniela can untap. So not wanting to try to be sneaky about that. And a pass back of the turn. We're looking at Daniela's hand right now. A double Rune of Speed, a Touch the Spirit Realm, a Boseiju, and a Commune with Spirits.
Yeah, this is promising in terms of just the sheer amount of value it provides her. It can make her Generous Visitor really big, and why it's not easily going to be able to block that on board, but it does kind of also put all her eggs in one basket. There's no showdown, which this deck really, really needs to truly go off, and the deck also really wants multiple creatures in matchups like this, just to make sure that you don't lose your whole board to a single removal spell, which might end up happening if Whyte just plays out one of their other Wandering Emperors in this spot.
Yes, and we'll see Wyatt letting that Wandering Emperor go, knowing that we know at least that there are two more in Wyatt's hand. Daniela, however, does not know that. So second main here can play a land. Is there any value to keeping the Boseiju up for this next turn?
Well, at the very least, there's the Restoration of Aggro that you can kill with Boseiju if you need to, because that is an enchantment creature. But that said, it's not ideal giving Whyte an extra land at this spot in the game when they've shown they have a Legion Angel, so they're already going to be using a lot of their mana and then have more spells in hand still. So it makes sense to go for Touch of the Spirit Realm rather than Boseiju in that spot.
That does make sense. And down comes a second copy of the Wandering Emperor on Wyatt's side to take care of that Generous Visitor. And like you said, eggs meet basket and then boot meet basket is kind of what just happened there. So we'll see maybe a Desperation Rune of Speed, and it looks like that's what's going to happen here. Going to really pants up that Plains. So honestly, it's not the worst thing if you're playing with like a Lair of the Hydra or something, maybe that you can stow it away for later. But unfortunately, without any creature lands on Daniela's side and just drawing another land off of that attempted cycle from the Rune of Speed, it's just an Iganjo's Seat of the Empire and a Boseiju who endures in hand, which are two very good cards, but it's a long road that Daniela is going to have to travel at this point, I believe, as we see Concealing Curtains flipping to Revealing Eye. What does Daniela need to get out of this?
I think the start would be a showdown of skulls, but in all honesty, I don't really think there's a chance of Daniela getting out of this at this point. She's just so far behind on board, and the rune deck doesn't play all that well from behind. Something she might be looking for in this spot is a showdown of the skulls into maybe a naturalist, but even that wouldn't have been enough, I don't think.
Yeah, not quite. So Wyatt will take down game number 1, Orzhov Midrange over Naya Runes, and we'll take a look at sideboards here. See some Arlen the Pack's Hope, a few wedding announcements, Valorous Stance, Tamiyo's Safekeeping, a Dawnbringer Cleric, a few Circle of Confinements, and Portable Hole. What interests you here against an Orzhov deck?
I think I'm most interested in Safekeeping. That seems particularly good against Orzhov with just a bunch of removal, though it's hard to say specifically what. There's a few things that are probably coming out, like the Paladin classes, and you can probably trim on some number of runes, but there's only so many spots that are available to take out really in this matchup. A lot of the cards are just key to the functioning of the deck, so figuring out what to bring in is hard because you only have so many slots. The Owlins make sense. They don't get removed one for one, and Safekeeping might make sense. Wedding Announcement might make sense. There's a bunch of cards that are pretty good. Valor Stance might make sense just as a flexible tool. Part of what makes sideboarding for the Runes deck this hard is how versatile the Orzhov deck is. I talked a little bit about silencers being important because opponents play a lot of the same card every game. But what silencer also does, and a lot of what these Orzhov decks do, is turn the corner really well just by being a 2-mana 3/2 that attacks quite well. Because the Naya Runes deck is really capable of winning a long game with Shutdown of the Skulls. It's very hard to keep up with that. But by using a bunch of 2-drops like Silencer and having Legion Angels as your top end threat, having Wandering Emperors as your removal that also applies pressure, the deck's really capable of turning the corner very quickly now. And that makes sideboarding against it hard because depending on their draw, different cards might either line up very well or very poorly.
Yes, as we see as we move to Wyatt's sideboarding, they cut their dresses pretty quickly. They're going to shave down on wedding announcements as well. So also deciding on how they want to keep their top end here. We see the Legion Angel package working out very well for Wyatt in game number 1. Taking a look at the Sorin.
Yeah, while the Wandering Emperor is really strong as a planeswalker, that's also a removal spell. Other planeswalkers slightly less powerful in this matchup, since if you tap out to play out a planeswalker, the Runes deck could absolutely just combo off and kill you, or at least apply a bunch of pressure and draw a bunch of cards that's hard to come back from. So tapping out for expensive threats, not ideal, and Wyatt clearly recognizes that and is not playing the Sorens or the Lulzburst board because they don't line up ideally. They're not even bringing in the extra Legion Angel because while having one is probably worth it, Legion Angel is powerful enough if you're only running one that you always find drawing a 4/3 that's going to draw you 3 more cards. It's a little soft to interaction. It's a little soft to your opponent tapping down. That said, with the farewells being brought in, there's also some value to just having some top end to deploy post board wipe and take over the game. So some combination of like I'd say 3 or 4, 4 and 5 drops makes a lot of sense for Wyatt to be running.
No, that definitely makes sense. But unfortunately, we see Wyatt, our player on the top of the Orzhov mid-range player, mulliganing down to 5 as Daniela very comfortably keeps her 7. And we are off to the races. It's a pathway into a commune, revealing 2 lands or a wedding announcement. Looks like wedding announcement will be the choice here. Double naturalist in hand for Daniela and a concealing curtains down on the side of Wyatt, hoping to at least gum up the battlefield for a little bit.
Yeah. Wedding announcement definitely much scarier out of Daniela's deck post board than it was out of Wyatt's. Announcement out of Wyatt's deck is definitely good, but they're drawing a few cards or interacting with the board is not that important. Whereas Daniela often will get several cards out of the wedding announcement, and on top of that, she's often going to be able to use the announcement to be cast more cheaply with naturalist and or to just get value with the various things that trigger off enchantment. So it's fundamentally a slightly more powerful card for her post board, which is why she brought them in while Wyatt took their copies out.
And what feels even better is double naturalist into a 1-mana wedding announcement. Gotta feel real good on Daniela's side here as the board is continuing to build, but that 1/5 just stonewalling everybody. So we'll see another aspirant on the side of Wyatt as they bolt in a land and flip the curtain. So it's going to be a revealing eye taking a looky-loo here at a Rune of Speed, a Rune of Might, and a Rockfall Veil. Do you take something here?
I think it's really close. I think I would lean towards not because that just gives. I suppose the rune's gonna be drawing another card anyway. So and Daniela has a ton of mana with the natural, so it's probably just free to take one. So on second thought, I probably would. I think Wyatt made the correct choice.
No, and it looks like just a naturalist will be the replacement draw. and another wedding announcement and a rune of speed. So things are snowballing a little bit here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether Daniela considers it worth attacking with 1/1s and on naturalists to get draws off the wedding announcement, or if she'll wait till next turn until there are a few more tokens.
Yes, even though Wyatt did mulligan, Meat Hook Massacres are a real card, and there are 2 of them in Wyatt's deck somewhere. So it's kind of a scary thing to consider when you've got a bunch of X1s and X2s.
Yeah, that's a really heads up play from Daniela, recognizing that there's not any enchantments with more than 2 colorless mana and their mana cost in her deck. The third naturalist is not providing a discount, can't attack into the revealing eye anyway, so there's no reason for her to play it out into a board wipe.
All right, let's see what the Showdown of the Skulls revealed. Looks like 3 lands and the one of Dawnbringer Cleric, which an interesting inclusion here. Dawnbringer Cleric has 3 modes when it comes into play. When it enters the battlefield, you can either gain 2 life, destroy target enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. So looks like Dawnbringer will come in.
It's a fairly versatile card against Wyatt. It's maybe not as strong as something as it would be against, say, Daniela's deck, where all her important things are enchantments. But a majority of Wyatt's, a good chunk of Wyatt's important things are still enchantments with all the sagas and the wedding announcements, so definitely worth bringing in. And in this spot, just really useful as a 2-mana body that impacts the board.
Oh, wow, we see the second Luminarch aspirant growing every creature on Wyatt's side, but the first wedding announcement has flipped on Daniela's side, and the second one is about to, as a second Showdown of the Skulls was the draw here. So going to be pumping a lot of creatures up this turn. There is removal in Wyatt's hand.
Yeah. That said, trading 1-for-1 against a bunch of Showdown of the Skulls is definitely not ideal. And it's definitely going to leave Wyatt pretty far behind here when they were already on a multi-5 and struggling on cards. So, not a great spot.
Yes, and also important to note, Vanishing Verse cannot take care of Naturalist. So instead, that Runeforged champion will bite the dust. Taking a look here at the library for a rune, deciding perhaps maybe to change to the graveyard. It looks like Daniela mulling over her options.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision whether you value the choice of which rune you have over the ability to avoid thinning your library a little more, because you definitely would like to draw more runes here. They draw cards, provide you multiple counters, not close to free, so it's definitely better to draw more runes, which makes you lean towards the graveyard. But the ability and flexibility to give something lifelink so that there's no way Wyatt can ever race is also really powerful, because definitely the board getting mostly wiped here by a Meat Hook Massacre, followed by like a Legion Angel or 2, and being in a racing situation is one of the few ways Daniela loses this game. So her recognizing that it's important for her to be able to win a race at a later point is a really heads-up play and allows her to be better prepared for various eventualities, even though in the immediate future of the next turn or 2, it is less positive for her.
Yes, and we see Sorin coming into play on Wyatt's side. If there is any card in Wyatt's deck to try to make up some of that card advantage, Sorin is going to be one of them, as long as Wyatt can preserve their life total. We see another Rune of Might coming down here, and these creatures are getting big on Daniela's side. Rune of Might certainly going on the mighty. There we go. A 4/4 trampling token. We have a 5/5 naturalist, another 5/5 token, and a 4/6 cleric here. There's those tokens are quite brolic.
Yeah, and this is what makes Showdown of the Skull so strong in this deck. Like, if you look at it, over the course of 3 turns, Daniela has played 2 Showdowns, which have drawn her, I'd say around 6 cards between them. They've also given her like 10 power and toughness worth of counters, probably more, definitely more actually. Somewhere in the 12 to 15 power and toughness worth of counters, and she hasn't even drawn a generous visitor or something to really abuse the fact that she's casting a bunch of spells. So there's a real testament to how powerful Showdown is in this deck, really letting Daniela just go off in this spot.
And you see everybody's getting in the red zone here. Everybody that can is getting into the red zone here. No real good blocks on the side of Wyatt, but going to need to block here as this is a huge attack for 22. So some of it trampling as well.
Yeah, I don't believe this is a spot Wyatt is going to be able to come back from. They don't even have enough lands, I believe, to cast a Meathook Massacre large enough to kill most of Daniela's things. So even if they drew Meathook Massacre for turn, plus Sorin, draw land, play land, that would still leave them not nearly able to kill most of Daniela's bots. So I don't think they have a... Oh, there's Farewell. That they sideboarded, and I completely forgot about that one.
Yes, a 3 of Farewell. Like that has to be the best draw in the deck possible. Does Daniela have any recourse here? Looking for any sort of creature lands or anything, and it looks like the answer is no. But Ruinforge Champion is not a bad place to restart things.
Yeah, Champion definitely the best draw on her deck because I believe she still has a Rune of Speed left that she could get. And Generous Visitor put Rune of Speed on the Champion, forces a jump block with the Vampire. So that's not a bad spot to be in at all. She gets another draw for a removal spell to end the game here, and even if she isn't able to end the game, she at least forces a jump block this turn, has a scary attacker next turn.
Yes, and we will see that be the play. Rune of Speed onto that Runeforge Champion. Generous Visitor going to pump it up a little more too. And let's see, the draw is an Arlen, the Pack's Hope. Runeforge getting in, forcing that chump block. So Wyatt up to 6 life, still with a Sorin in play, drawing in a Ganjo. A Humiliate. So to discard that Arlen. So Arlen, unfortunately, not going to be able to be cast here. Again, you'll see the Empire, an interesting draw, being able to deal 4 to an attacker.
And yeah, I mean, in this spot, it's looking maybe like Wyatt has stabilized. Their life total is currently safe. Daniela notably is down 2 of her Showdown of the Skulls and has only 1 rune left in her deck, so she's lost most of her catch-up mechanics. And I don't know that she has much by way of getting back into this game without drawing one of the 2 remaining Showdowns.
Yeah, that Farewell was an extremely timely draw on the side of Wyatt. There's good sideboarding reason it was in. So 3 copies of that in Wyatt's deck, and we'll see the 3/4 Vampire getting in, bringing Wyatt back up to 5, a little bit more comfortable of a life total, and Meathook Massacre coming down, able to take care of that small visitor and the Kami of Transience, a Lair of the Hydra, and a Craig Crown Pathway being found by Commune, and Lair coming down, but the Wandering Emperor in Wyatt's hand, and Daniela knows full well about one of the 2. Since the second copy was just drawn. Oh my.
Yeah, I think that was the turn on which Daniela needed to find a Showdown. I think we're approaching the point at which even a Showdown probably won't be enough to save her at this point. She needed to be able to present some threats before those Wandering Emperors started upticking or started providing creatures to apply additional pressure. Now, even any threats that Daniela draws, probably not going to be good enough against the removal that the Wandering Emperors represent.
Yes, and Daniela does know about the Wandering Emperor, and Wyatt felt enough that they had turned the corner that they plussed with Sorin, saw a wedding announcement, said, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take 3. and go down to 4. So that you've got to be real comfortable against the rune deck to be like, yeah, that's okay. I'll go to 4.
Yeah, it's upon the note that with that last rune speed gone, Daniela doesn't have reach. There's no way that she can apply pressure off the top except with the Larifydra that's in play, plus specifically drawing the one trample rune left in her deck, and that's pretty mana intensive and doesn't get through blockers. So Wyatt is pretty free to play without having to worry about what Daniela is doing because there's really no way Daniela can attack them for a meaningful amount.
Yes, and unfortunately for Daniela, it looks like she is finding all of the lands in her deck right now. After having a very robust start to the game. But this has definitely been a very impressive showing on the side of Wyatt, who, again, mulligan to 5 this game. So a definite testament to the power and resilience of the Orzhov deck here.
Yeah, some really impressive play from them, making sure to take the lines that left them with the longest time alive, knowing that only out was a board wipe after Daniela was forced to extend to the board, and taking the line that allowed that, making a large block and revealing it eye, never attacking, just making sure their blockers were an awkward size for Daniela to deal with, and then that leaving them with the out of drawing a board wipe, which they then drew, is just really strong play from them, recognizing that that was the only way they were actually winning this game.
Yeah, we see Rune of Might, the draw from Daniela. But Wyatt's hand at this point is pretty stock. Legion Angel, Wandering Emperor, a Humiliate, and a Restoration of Iganjo. I don't know if there is a way for Daniela to get out of this as she is thinking over what her outs are here, what she can possibly do to stay in this game. After drawing that Rune of Might, that it would at least cycle itself as well. Taking a look at the lair of the Hydra, maybe thinking about firing that up. But it looks like Rune of Might will be the starting point here.
Yeah, I think a consideration for Daniela there in that spot, what she was probably thinking about was just activating the Lair of Hydra for 9, playing a land and putting a rune on it and the counter on it, making it an 11/11 attacker. But I think she correctly recognized that at this point that's just not going to be enough. She needs perhaps some sort of really powerful chain of showdown of the Skull's draws, because without that, she's not going to be able to keep up, even if she's spending her turns attacking for 11 a turn with Lair of the Hydra against some multiple creatures with lifelink and just the piles of removal Wyatt has in that deck.
Yes, and we see Meat Hook, a second Meat Hook Massacre, the draw on Wyatt's side. But like you said, Daniela also at a pretty high life total from all of the life gain from earlier on in the game. She was coming up to 40-ish life, I believe. I think she topped out at around 38. So being able to kind of delay things here until she'd be able to figure out, how do I get out of this? So
Yeah. Wyatt representing a meaningful amount of pressure, though. Those planeswalkers are scaling threats. They add pressure each turn and then keep adding pressure on subsequent turns. So every turn, Daniela gets more. Every turn Daniela misses makes it non-linearly harder for her to be able to come back because of the amount of lifelink damage these vampires are doing.
yes, as we see life totals kind of flip-flop here. Daniela now down to 16 and Wyatt back up to 19 life, and that wedding announcement drawing a card, Vanishing Verse, off of that as so a pretty good insurance policy, as if Wyatt didn't have things sort of mostly shored up here. As we see Commune with Spirits from Daniela, we'll see if Daniela can find something here to help her out.
Yep. It looks like Wyatt might be considering Vanishing versus Generous Visitor in response, knowing that one of the few ways they lose is a showdown of the skulls, but they decide not to, and it doesn't look like it's going to matter.
Yes, as Daniela takes a look at the top of her library and only finds another land, and again, Joe, but just another land. So a tough spot for Daniela to be in. And I guess you're not even that good, especially once you have to reveal it. And those vampires are X5s at the moment. So
Yeah,
doesn't do too much.
very easy for Wyatt to play around in this spot. They can just take their time and kill Daniela in a turn or two. Depending on what they draw, they might even be able to kill Daniela next turn.
And it looks like another Wandering Emperor will be the draw here. So we're looking at double Emperor, a Restoration, a Legion Angel, and another Meat Hook Massacre. And just a naturalist on the side of Daniela. So Jukai Naturalist, not really what you want to be using as a blocker.
No, and you definitely don't want to be trading it off. If it's used as a blocker, you want to have like 5 runes on it and 3 counters, so it's like gaining you 8 life and eating a creature. It's not supposed to be trading with one of several knights off the Wandering Emperor. That's definitely not the ideal use case.
It's like, I'm going to trade with about 13% of a card. Oh no, that doesn't feel good. And we see these lifelinking vampires getting in the air. Daniela down to 8. Legion Angel coming down. Oh, is Daniela playing any farewells?
Not that I know of.
Oh boy.
And even if she were, I suspect it wouldn't be enough in this spot. Farewell doesn't hit Planeswalkers, and there's 6 cards in hand for Wyatt.
Yeah, so unfortunately, another land, the draw from Daniela's side on a stocked board on Wyatt's side, and it will be good games. Wyatt taking down Daniela 2 games to none. So Orzhov Midrange over Naya Runes here. And that's actually our only Naya Runes player for the evening. So as much as that deck has, taken Standard by storm, it's I mean, I don't even know if you can call it, an upset or anything like that. It's just, it's only showing here tonight. Unfortunately, it was not successful. So Whyte moves on to 2-0, Daniela to 1-1, but there's still plenty of play. Still another 5 rounds to go in our round robin and 3 more matches to go tonight. We're going to be taking a look at our second matchup here. We have out of Division 4, Ailsa Whyte, Melly, if you remember from top 8 of last season, of VML vet. She has been in the VML for quite some time now, bringing Rakdos Sacrifice. This is another deck that I feel like has kind of started to build since New Standard with the additions of Nicole Anvil and I'm a big fan. Say I'm a Goblin fan. So Twin Shot Sniper came out. I'm like, that's my kind of card. And as well as Synthesizer has been a must play for look at the top, always make my 3rd land drop kind of card. So what are your thoughts on the Rakdos Sacrifice deck?
I'm very interested in it. This is definitely not an archetype I've seen much of, and it's one of those things that's a bunch of synergy cards from a new set, so that means it has an incredibly high potential in terms of how good it could be. You could have an absolutely broken deck that just functions like a really powerful combo deck, or it could be a deck that rarely comes together but is very powerful when it does. Elsa does mention this deck being a scam, so I'm maybe slightly less optimistic about it, but
Maybe she's just trying to keep it all to herself.
yeah, maybe. Maybe this is just to lull us into a false sense of security.
That's what I'm
She
saying.
takes the VML by storm with this list.
Elsa, you think you're being tricky. We're watching you. So, and now on the other side here, we have another season 6 top 8 competitor, Mel Woods. Mel just absolutely loves their mono white deck. So absolutely crushed people with it last season, is looking to crush people again with it this season. A few new additions. We see the Wandering Emperor in this deck as well, that we had the pleasure of seeing in the Orzhov list, and a copy or 2 of the, I believe Ganja was in this list. Am I wrong?
Uh,
Oh, Oh no, it is. It's
Yeah, I
here.
believe it is.
There's two. As I was like, I'm not seeing it, but there's two again to the seat of the empire. But besides that, it's honestly almost copy paste from last season, and I like the consistency. What is your thoughts? Because a lot of these decks kind of fell off the wayside. You don't see, Faceless Haven away. I'm not seeing mono green anywhere. Mono white not really showing up too many places. So this is one of the few decks that I feel like has carried over from last standard, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It's the deck is powerful and applies pressure early, which is important in a new format where decks are still untuned and people might be running slightly slower decks than ideal. And Mono White's really, really good at punishing people who are trying to experiment with stuff in playlists that are maybe slightly untuned or slightly rough around the edges. Sometimes might be just half a turn too slow, and things like Talia, Spellbinder, and then against decks like Runes, Brutal Cathar and Brutal Cathar and Skyclave Apparition just provide a lot of the right types of interaction to really punish people for stumbling even a little. So I think this is a really I don't doubt that they would have run Mono White anyway because they've proven they're able to win with that in against basically anything last season. But it's a particularly potent choice for this point in the metagame.
Well, I'm excited to see it. They were excited to play it, so I'm excited to watch them play it. We're going to dive right into here to our second match from Division 4. Ailsa Whyte on Rakdos Sacrifice versus Mel Woods on Mono White Aggro. We are going to be watching from the side of Ailsa as we look at a one-land opener. What are your thoughts?
A one lander is so hard to justify keeping, even with the synthesizer and on the draw. The one land's tapped on top of that, so then Elsa's not even going to be able to run out her Voldaren Epicure on one to be able to rummage with the blood. Yeah, it just seems like a really hard sell to keep a hand like that.
All right, Ailsa not being greedy, so it looks like a better 6 here. We're looking at a better 7 about to become a better 6. Synthesizer allowing for those redraws. 3 lands, double synthesizer, double twin shot sniper, which seems like it would be pretty good in this matchup.
Yeah, sniper is kind of the perfect piece of removal. It notably does not have its cost increased by Talia, so you can kill a Talia on 2, no problem. It's a little awkward that if Spellbinder takes a sniper, you're kind of stuck with a clunky card you have to cast because you can't channel it from exile. But on the other hand, if the channeler is cast as just a 4-mana 2/3 that shocks, that's really good against mono white. That's almost always a 2-for-1. You're killing like a Talia or a Sentinel or something, and then later you are trading with a Spellbinder or, well, a Sentinel or something.
Yeah, we see that first Thalia kind of bite the dust there. Sungold Sentinel coming down to eat the twin shot sniper, but that's okay. Synthesizer coming here always hits a land, never misses. So
yeah, it's also interesting to note how well Synthesizer lines up against the removal from Mel's deck. In terms of removal, what Mel has is things like they have things like Brutal Cathar and Skyclave Apparition. Those really don't line up well against Sniper, because if you Cathar a Sniper and then Ailsa removes it, then she gets an extra EDB trigger and gets to deal 2 extra damage to something. And if you Skyclave Apparition a Sniper, well, you're only getting rid of a 2/3 body, but when the Apparition gets removed, Ailsa will get a 4/4 back because her Twin Shot Sniper is technically a 4-drop.
Yeah, so, a 4/4 is a pretty good body on this board.
Yeah, it's definitely Sniper is just all told a pretty impressive card against what Mel is doing.
Yes. And it looks like Ailsa's taking a second here, has the option to channel the twin shot sniper to target the Sungold Sentinel before it can grow to a 4/3 and get in here. The Luminarch Aspirant, obviously the other choice for targets, as Mel Woods did miss a land drop. It seems to be stuck on 2 lands, and Meathook Massacre, the draw here on Ailsa's side as a second synthesizer comes down. But Voltage Sure is a pretty good card as well. Some new removal that we have been seeing. in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty standard. Voltage Surge is going to take care of that Luminarch Aspirant. And Ailsa with no threats, but Mel Woods also with no threats. So
Yeah, that massacre in hand is going to at some point get Elsa a bunch of card advantage and wipe Mel's pod. At this point, really, of the two decks, Elsa is definitely the one that wants to play a controlling role. And yeah, she is on turn 5 with like multiple cards in hand, multiple eggs in play, and still at 20 life. And this is kind of the ideal situation for her.
and it looks like you said, just 17, no problem, taking 3 there. Mel deciding to make a 1/1 token off of that Usher of the Fallen, and another Shatter Skull smashing the draw here on Ailsa's side. So perhaps not in too much of a rush here to deploy anything, but Ailsa has options.
Yeah, this mana screw on Melspot actually making it a little more awkward for Elsa, because if Mel had all the mana they needed and could just run out their hands, then it would fairly quickly become a good board state for Metuk Massacre to just wipe up the board. But since Mel is being restricted to playing out 1 or 2 things a turn, they're not leaving themselves as open to Metuk Massacre from Elsa. So I suppose a silver lining to being mana screwed.
All right, we'll see another Voltage Surge here at the draw. And now the text on Voltage Surge, it's an instant for a red. And as an additional cost, you can sack an artifact, deal 2 damage. But if you paid the extra sacked an artifact, it will deal 4 damage to a target creature or planeswalker. And we'll see Ailsa go, you know what? It's time for Metuk Massacre, though.
Yeah.
Clean everything up.
Surge quite the synergy with Synthesizer, essentially letting you, for 1 mana, deal 4 damage and draw a card, which is pretty good.
Huh. Yes, and we'll see Voltage Surge take care of Adeline, but that second surge with no place to go. So it looks like it's time for Den of the Bugbear to shine. Den gonna get in, attacking for 3, making a little gobbo, getting another one in. So down to 16 goes Mel.
Yeah, and something to be aware of in this spot is just how good Elsa's deck is at closing out the game. A deck might sometimes be a little slow to get going in the early game, but with 4 Oni Cult Anvil, a bunch of Metuk Massacres, one of which is in play, she just has a lot of reach. And so once you get down to the like 5 to 8 life range, you definitely got to be careful with your life total, because there's a chance she will just be able to deal a bunch of damage out of nowhere.
No, that is one of the things that, if Mel's missing land drops, that means she's got a grip full of spells. So we'll see how both sides will be heading into the late game here. A Blood Tithe Harvester off of that second Synthesizer, and that lowly 1/1 Goblin not going to get in here.
Yeah, and some really disciplined play from Ailsa, making sure she didn't run out the Planeswalker or the Shadow Skull Smashing, even though both have been pretty good in that spot, just to guarantee that she gets full value out of both those cards. Doesn't run the Planeswalker into a removal spell, forcing a jump. Doesn't run the Shadow Skull Smashing into a 1-for-1 trade when she could get a 2-for-1 at a later point. So just really strong, solid play from her, being perhaps more disciplined than I would have been.
That is a compliment, though, if I have ever heard one. So we see Shatter Skull Smashing here, going to take care of both of these creatures. The adversary dealt 2, and the Brutal Cathar will go down to an X2 once again after the adversary has died.
Yeah, something like a Valorous stance would be pretty awkward in this spot, which I believe Mel has a couple copies of in that deck, because if the adversary is safe, then this doesn't kill the Brutal Catha either.
Yikes. Yeah, that doesn't feel too great. Shambling gas, but no way to sacrifice it to get that extra 1 damage off the brutal Cathar. So it looks like Mel is going to go back into their turn with their board intact. But no attacks. No
Yeah,
attacks. Great.
I wouldn't say Mel is ahead here by any stretch. Their deck is still significantly less able to play the late game than Ailsa's is, but at the very least, they're back in this. They're no longer leagues behind and have some actual pressure on board, some actual scary cards that could potentially, over a few turns, let them have a chance at maybe winning this game if Ailsa draws poorly, and also if they draw well or draw just a few haymakers in a row.
Yeah, and it looks like Soren touching down on Ailsa's side. Also, a deadly dispute drawn off of that blood cycle, which seems pretty good here to be able to draw more, make more mana. And the Wandering Emperor, the last card in Mel's hand, though. We'll see what Mel decides to do with them, starting by making a 2/2.
Yep. And if Mel goes to put a counter on the Battlefield Raptor and attack the Soren here, Ailsa has a really nice play she can make just by blocking the Vampire on the Raptor and then sacrificing the Shambling Ghost to give it -1/-1 to make sure the Raptor doesn't actually eat the Vampire, and allowing her to keep her Soren around without having to actually lose anything this turn.
All right, let's see. Also worth noting that Mel does have a Cave of the Frost Dragon in play as well. And it looks like that Battlefield Raptor is going to come in and attack Soren. And Ailsa thinking about what to do here. And clicked to block, but is considering her options as far as what she could deadly dispute. If she just wants to let Soren go here.
Yeah, it might be worth considering that it would make a lot of sense here for her to prioritize dealing with the Wandering Emperor as well. So there's definitely value to holding the Deadly Dispute until end of turn to try and figure out what Mel is doing, and then trying to ensure that she can actually kill the Wandering Emperor before it gets too much value, because that's definitely going to be a scary threat in the long term. And Soren, while decent, is eventually going to die to this Battlefield Raptor. There's no two ways about it. The Battlefield Raptor is a 3/4. Mel doesn't currently have, Ailsa doesn't currently have a way to deal with it, and she's either going to have to spend several turns jumping at some point to keep it alive, or she's going to need to draw something that lets her deal with the Raptor, at which point she's probably ahead anyway, so it makes sense for her to prioritize dealing with the Wandering Emperor.
It looks like ultimately Deadly Dispute sacrificing that Shambling Ghast will be the play here. Drain a little bit of life from Mel, so down to 15. And it is nighttime now. Something that I forget about occasionally when it's the mono white deck is that Brutal Cathar is a werewolf. It does have a back end.
Yeah, and a pretty scary one at that, because more than anything, what it being night does means that if Ailsa plays that 2 spells this turn and doesn't manage to kill the Brutal Cathar, then she's going to lose yet another creature to it, which is kind of an unacceptable level of board swing. Though with the Massacre, that's not going to be relevant, I don't think.
Yes, and it looks like was able to get the block from the Cape of the Frost Dragon, so this Meathook Massacre is going to nab that as well, and Blood Tithe Harvester is back on the battlefield on the side of Ailsa, as well as a Shambling Ghast and a Synthesizer in hand against Mel Woods' Wandering Emperor that will try to protect itself with a 2/2.
Yeah, between the Blood Tithe Harvester, the Shambling Ghast, and like the lands in play, Mel should definitely be able to get rid of the Wandering. Ailsa should definitely be able to get rid of the Wandering Emperor this turn if she wants to. Though it's entirely possible that she might just prioritize making sure Mel isn't able to turn things around on board, and attacking Mel's life total because they're down to 12 and, as mentioned, a lot of reach in Ailsa's deck.
Looks like Blood-Tithe Harvester offering up the trade by threatening Mel's life total. Hive of the Eye Tyrant will go after Wandering Emperor. That one has Menace, so unable to block with just a singular creature. Meathook Massacre will go off, drain one from Mel, gain one for Ailsa, and still with 2 creature lands in play on Ailsa's side, a Shambling Gas, and some blood to dump some of these extra lands. Ailsa looking pretty good here.
Yeah, I've got to believe this game's probably going to be hers. Uh, Looking at Mel's deck, they don't really have much to come back from the situation, particularly given the Meathook Massacre is going to make any trade essentially not work for them. Uh, every time they every time they interact with one of Elsa's creatures, they go down 1 life, and being at 5 life, that's not many times you're able to interact.
Yes, and we'll see the good game from Melwood's side. That was a very intense, involved game number 1, with Ailsa coming out on top with Rakdos sacrifice over Melwood's on mono white aggro. We move on to game 2 and sideboards here. Is there anything of note you see in Ailsa's sideboard?
Just a little more spot removal. There's really not that much that's going to change about her plan. Meathook Massacre is just like one of the best cards against mono white, and her plan will probably revolve around interacting a little bit and then trying to win with Massacre. And so her sideboard just sets her up to do that a little better with a little more by way of cheap interaction.
We'll see Ailsa going down to 5 here. The 7 not quite keepable. The 6 was 6 lands and a deadly dispute, which doesn't really get you very far. This 5, it's not the best, but
Yeah,
hey,
it's not great, but with 5 cards, you gotta keep what you gotta keep.
gotta keep right. And Shatter Skull Smashing can definitely do some work, as can Shambling Ghast. So especially against a card like Thalia. Oh, and we'll see Nicole Anvil being the draw here. An interesting one that we did not get to see in game 1. I would love to see that one in action as Skyclave Apparition comes down to take care of that Shambling Gas, so Millwoods does not have to worry about their Thalia anymore. Double Ani Occult Anvil here.
Yeah, and Elsa's deck certainly has some tools for coming back from this. Her deck has the Meathook Massacre, so if she's just able to survive long enough to get to the massacres, which is admittedly looking harder and harder,
Yes.
then maybe she has a chance of coming back. But it looks like the window to draw something that lets her down this run is going to be pretty small.
Yes, it is definitely quickly closing here, and Elsa goes, you know what? I'm just going to chalk that one up to I mulliganed at 5, didn't draw great. Let's move on to game number 3. Take a relook at this sideboard, and we're at 1 game apiece now. Is there any changes you think we would like to make?
Not really. The removals all come in. The clunky cards have mostly come out. I think Elsa's deck is as well set up as she can have it. But one thing Mel has going for them is we didn't see a lot of it game 1, but like I said, that interaction with Talia, Brutal Kata, Skyclave Apparition, just picking off important pieces of Mel's close to combo deck is really of Elsa's close to combo deck, leaves Mel the ability to sometimes completely prevent Elsa from having effective cards. Like Oni Cult Anvil is a powerful card in combination with other cards, but if you don't have other artifacts, the card kind of does nothing. And Mel's deck is quite good at leaving not much else in play.
Yes, as we see Mel being able to clean up that Blood-Tithe Harvester real quick, but no pressure on the board yet from Mel. We will see the Skyclave Apparition coming down. Now, I believe that leaves Elsa with a choice here, because Anicolt can sacrifice to itself.
Yes. but it would not give a leaves a battlefield trigger on an opponent's turn. So if Ailsa sacrificed the animal here, she wouldn't be getting a trigger. She'd just be draining for 1, and that would prevent her from getting a 2/2 if she later kills the Skyclave apparition.
Yes, and we see the second Unequal Anvil coming down here and a Deadly Dispute to get rid of that first artifact creature, and boop, there it is again. So just like a little courtesy flash. It's like it was gone, but now it's back. So we'll see the nice self-perpetuating artifacts here as Mel makes their 4th land drop, and 5 cards in hand. Still, both players still at 20 life. So options here on either side. Ailsa with an Abrade and a Shatter Skull in hand. Gonna take 2 from the Skyclave apparition to drop down to 18. And we'll see what the follow-up here is from Mel's side.
Yeah, I think something powerful along the lines of a Wandering Emperor. I suppose an Adeline's not possible since we're in post-combat now. Another Skyclave apparition also counts, just interacting with Ailsa's bod. But yeah, this leaves Mel in a pretty good shape. They're applying pressure. They're preventing Ailsa from really being able to do anything. They're very soft to Meat Massacre, but that's almost always going to be the case in this matchup. So they kind of just have to hope that Ailsa doesn't have it. And at the very least, they have a bunch of cards after if Ailsa does.
Yes. Ailsa does have the option of just sinking everything into a single Shatter Skull smashing here, including the treasure that is left on the board to take care of both of the Skyclave apparitions. But doesn't leave with much left behind. You know, Abrade doesn't answer Adeline. So perhaps wanting to wait and see what Mel does next as they play their 5th land, 4 cards in hand on Mel's side, and going to see what action we can see from Mel here.
Yeah, one thing else I guess has going for her in this spot is she can just trade the Abrade for both the apparitions if needed by killing one and then trading the token she gets off that one for the other one.
Oh, I kind of like this. I didn't even think of that. Portable Hole is an artifact. So Abrade to take care of that. It will make a blood. Can block here. Block and trade with either Skyclave apparition. Will choose not to.
Yeah, this has a similar effect to removing a Skyclave apparition in that the Harvester is at some point going to trade for one of the apparitions by sacrificing itself or trading in combat. But what this does is, even though it leaves Ailsa taking a bit of damage, it lets her dig deeper for Meat Massacre, which at the end of the day is kind of all that matters in this matchup.
That's right. And we see that Legion Angel package start to come into play here. Ailsa maybe might have some trouble with flyers if she's not able to draw the appropriate removal for them. Without Abrade gone, just a Shatter Skull in hand.
Yeah, and it's a slightly awkward spot for Ailsa going into the long game here, where she's incentivized to remove the Skyclave apparition with her Blood Death Harvester because there's nothing else she can remove. But at the same time, if she does that, that makes a potential Meat Massacre later in the game less impactful because it's no longer giving her a board presence afterward. It's just getting rid of Mel's board presence. And at this point, Mel has more cards than Ailsa does anyway, as Ailsa's hand is all lands.
So we'll see Ailsa gonna cycle out that swamp for a mountain. Not a great trade, I would say. Even trade for Ailsa, but not what she was looking for. Hoping for an upgrade there. No such luck. Going to be able to play the mountain. Has the one of Takenuma, Abandoned Mire, that channels for 4, 3 and a black. If you discard it, you mill 3 and return a creature or planeswalker from the graveyard to the hand. And obviously costs 1 less for each legendary creature you control, but that does not come into play too often. We'll see the 4/3 Legion Angel getting in the air. Elite Spellbinder. Only 1 hit in Ailsa's hand at the moment. Not a bad one, though.
Yeah, hitting smashing is nice, but given how many lands Elsa has found, she's just going to be able to play it out anyway. And the Spellbinder is a 3-1, is a little softer that Shadow Skull smashing, though with Mel choosing to leave 2 mana up rather than playing out the Legion Angel, this makes me suspect that it's entirely possible they have a Valorous stance in hand this game.
We see Twin Shot Sniper the draw here. Able to play that one, and it does have Secret Reach. I mean, I don't know how secret it is because a lot of archers have Reach, but I don't know. I can't name another goblin that has Reach, so I'm going to consider it Secret Reach. We'll see that take care of the Elite Spellbinder as it comes into play, and the Blood Tithe Harvester coming down as well.
Twin Shot Sniper truly redefining what it is that goblins can and cannot do.
I'm all about it. I didn't think they could aim very well, a la the oh gosh, what card was that? Goodness, it's ready, fire, aim on. It's like Goblin, like Cannoneer or something like that. I don't know. It's a long time ago, but some of my favorite flavor text ever. So doing what goblins do best, and Legion Angel doing what Legion Angel does best, getting in for 4 to bring Ailsa down to 6. Second Legion Angel coming into play now as well, going to find one of their buddies, and Legion Angel joins the other 3 cards in Melwood's hand, and a Swamp is the draw for Ailsa here. Oh boy. Tough spot to be in.
Ailsa really needs a Meteor Massacre this one turn, otherwise the game is close to over for her. She can maybe interact with the Legion Angels. One potential play actually is activating the Blood Tithe Harvester, targeting one of the Legion Angels, getting it down to a 2-1, and then Shadow Skull smashing to kill both of them. And that would buy her a bunch of time, but it doesn't really solve the problem that Mel has 4 cards in hand and she has 2 lands in hand.
Yeah, that's feeling pretty bad. Mulling over her options here, Ailsa going to decide. Meat Hook Massacre is the draw off of that blood. So is it going to be timely enough is the question, with a Cave of the Frost Dragon in play on the side of Melwoods, as well as more Legion Angels waiting to come down. I suppose we will see. We will see as Meat Hook comes down for 3. This will be a bit of life gain on the side of Ailsa. As Mel drops to 16, Ailsa back up to 9 with a 2/2 in play.
Yeah, and with the Shadow Skull smashing, with those creature lands, Elsa's definitely not out of this game. I would say she's behind against the Tide of Legion Angels, but she has the ability to apply some meaningful pressure here and definitely has a chance as a result.
Yes.
I think in her spot, hopefully she can draw some removal for these Legion Angels, and then hope to either draw some engines or otherwise close out the game before Mel's really able to make up for all the cards Elsa's lost by just dealing with all 4 Legion Angels individually.
Ooh. See, we see Legion Angel been doing some work. Guardian of Faith coming down to protect that Legion Angel. Thought Ailsa was going to be able to take care of the third of 4 Legion Angel here. Did not quite work out that way, as Legion of Angel, Guardian of Faith, and Cave of the Frost Dragon on the side of Mel Woods, followed up by an Intrepid Adversary with a double pump. Oh, got a chump here. That does not feel good.
Yep. And this is a familiar spot where Ailsa once again needed a Meat Hook Massacre.
Yeah, one of the best cards in the deck, one of the best cards in the format, but unfortunately, after 3 games, unable to close it out. So Mel Woods going to take it down on Mono White Aggro. Like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So 2 games, 1 good games to both of our competitors there. Very well played. Both top 8 competitors from last season. So excellent to have them both back again. And awesome to watch them play. That was great. So that means, we are in we're in halftime right now. So what's our um what are your thoughts so far on we've seen a really good diverse mix of decks so far. We've seen Rakdos, now we saw Mono Whyte, we saw Orzhov, and we saw Naya runes. Is there anything that stood out to you, like from any of those decks in particular? Any breakout cards from Kamigawa that you've really liked watching?
Well, the runes deck is always a pleasure to watch. It really has the opportunity to be explosive. But I think we've seen some pretty good indicators that Standard's actually in a really healthy place. Despite runes being so powerful, decks like Orzhov clearly have the tools to combat it. We haven't seen it yet. I believe we'll be seeing it later tonight, but there's still entire powerful archetypes that we haven't even seen any of, like the Jeskai combo decks. And yeah, just a bunch of different decks that vary vastly in strategy. I think over the last several months, Standard was kind of polarized. There was aggressive decks and there was combo control decks, right? There was mono white and mono green as aggressive decks, and there was combo control decks with the Epiphany decks. And there were other decks that folks sometimes played, but none of them were really able to keep up with those top three decks in terms of win percentage. And we've now got like a really diverse meta in Standard. We've got the Jeskai Goldspan Dragon decks, which are definitely something of combo control decks. We've got true mid-range decks like Orzhov, aggro decks like Mono White, Pioli synergy decks like Rakdos Sacrifice, and then aggro combo decks like Runes. And we really haven't seen this diverse of a metagame in terms of just different types of decks that are playable in a long, long time in Standard. So I'm really happy that we finally got here.
No, I think it's great. I think you are 100% right. The format seems super healthy right now, and everybody seems to have at least like a deck that they like. Be like, you know what, I want to not. I guess I guess I gotta play that silly Yorian deck, or I gotta play this Epiphany deck, or whatever. It's just like, because I guess it's the best deck. I should be like, yes, I can play runes. I was like, or I could play my sacrificey Rakdos deck because it's fun. But well, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get back into the action here. Check out our third match of the evening from Division number 2. And like you had just mentioned, we have our first Goldspan combo, Jeskai combo deck here of the evening in the hands of Sam Murphy. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about this deck?
Well, I love talking about Goldspan Dragon combo decks, so I will gladly do so. The conceit of this deck is that Goldspan Dragon makes your treasures worth 2 mana. Goldspan Dragon makes treasures each time it's targeted, and you have a lot of ways of cheaply targeting it and making treasures. The deck with the Goldspan Dragon, play Unexpected Windfall costs. Net costs 0 mana because you get 2 treasures back, and it costs 4 mana. Galvanic Iteration plus Unexpected Windfall puts you up 2 mana, and then the primary combo card of the deck, the card that really lets this deck storm off, is Show of Confidence, because that card copies itself for each instant or sorcery you've cast before it this turn, and you get to put that many counters on target creature. And notably, each copy targets Goldspan Dragon. So say you've cast 4 instants and sorceries before it, and you cast Show of Confidence, that's 5 treasures you're getting off Goldspan Dragon, which is 10 mana. And using the 2 copies of Show of Confidence in the deck's really able to go off, generally loop through as much of its deck as as much of the deck as it needs to. So often the entire deck. And with Lier, you rarely run out of cards once you get to enough mana. And eventually the deck will either kill you by attacking with a huge Goldspan Dragon, courtesy of counter spit on it with Show of Confidence, or just flinging a huge Goldspan Dragon at your face with Kazul's Fury.
Or maybe one and then the other. Or attack you with a huge Goldspan Dragon.
It can definitely do both.
And then throw it at your face. That sounds like a lot of fun. Save targets, go, Show up.
And one of the really beautiful things about this deck is that it gets to play a lot like old Epiphany or Goldspan Dragon decks, in that while we see things like runes that are more of an aggro combo shell can apply pressure early, this deck maybe a little less capable of applying pressure, but has all its cards are just interaction. You just get to run things like Dragon's Fire and Spikefield Hazard and cards like that allow you to interact with what your opponent is doing while at the same time not being dead cards when you combo off, because you can target your own Goldspan Dragon with things like your Prismari commands and your Spikefield Hazards, and that's going to give you mana back to try and combo off. So the deck gets to play a lot more like combo control and be very reactive to what your opponent's doing until the deck turns the corner and combo kills you in a single turn.
I am excited to see this one in action. Let's take a look at our other side here. We have JesusLovesUnicorns with an Orzhov midrange deck, similar to the one that we had seen earlier in the hands of Wyatt, who won their match 2 games to none over Daniela and Naya runes earlier. So very succinct and to the point here. Feeling like standard is just like bird out, haven out, dragons and runes are here. So deciding to go with Orzhov midrange. We see duresses and go blanks here. How powerful do you think the discard game is for Orzhov against this control deck? This combo deck, excuse me.
It's definitely important. I think the deck can't really keep up without discard. The raw amount of card advantage the Izzet deck gets is really powerful. It's worth noting that there's 2 copies of Goldblank in the sideboard, and those are really powerful against Lier. But game 1, there's no real way this deck has to keep up with the sheer card advantage of Lier. So this card going to be of limited use if Lier is eventually going to just come down and draw infinite cards. Game 1 at least.
Yeah, all right. I'm excited to see how this one goes. So let's move down to the feature match area. We've got Division 2 Sam Murphy on Jeskai Goldspan combo versus JesusLovesUnicorns on Orzhov midrange. We'll be watching from the side of we have hiccups are great. They keep everybody on their toes. I'm just very excited to see this combo deck in action. The Goldspan combo deck. I want to see. Although I imagine JesusLovesUnicorns does not. I would like to see it happen just once at least. So
yeah, I'm a long-time proponent of combo decks with Goldspan Dragon. I have unsurprisingly registered this deck every week so far on the VML, just because it's what I love to do, and I'm really excited to get to see it go off on air.
So hopefully it will get what we want here on the side of Samantha Murphy. Is our Goldspan combo player on the bottom. On the top, we have JesusLovesUnicorns on Orzhov midrange. We see some discard in JesusLovesUnicorns opener here in Humiliate, some removal in Vanishing Verse, and some taxing in the Silencer. But
yeah. Definitely a pretty strong hand from them, with Vanishing Verse in particular being really impactful against the combo deck. The Wandering Emperor also being really powerful, because what the Wandering Emperor lets you do is you can play it out in response to the attack trigger from Goldspan Dragon and activate the Wandering Emperor before that trigger resolves. And since the Wandering Emperor's ability targets the Goldspan, as opposed to the spell itself targeting Goldspan, Goldspan won't get you mana back from that. So the Wandering Emperor is one of the few ways of getting rid of Goldspan Dragon without giving Samantha the ability to protect it. And so it's a really potent answer for JesusLovesUnicorns as a result.
It looks like Samantha making a tough decision here off of that expressive iteration, not finding a land off of it, although having the 3rd land drop in hand, seeing an expressive iteration as well as a valorous stance and a show of confidence, deciding to put the 2nd iteration in hand and passing on the other 2, needing to ensure to make their land drops here. We'll see the Humiliate, though, from JesusLovesUnicorn side, and Goldspan Dragon will bite the dust, and here we go. There's that that wait a second, that Thoughtseize bug. It's like, I just took your Goldspan dragon. How did you draw another one? I don't understand. This iteration a little calmer than the first. Fading Hope double lands. We'll see Fading Hope into the hand. It's a question of what color does Samantha Murphy want to play her land out on, and it looks like Lava Glide Pathway will be the choice and a pass back of the turn.
Yeah, and this is something that's worth noting about Silver Core Silencer. It's theoretically really powerful in these spots because it's a good follow-up to discard. You know exactly what your opponent's going to have in their hand. But in this case, Jesus Loves Unicorns knew what Samantha had in her hand a turn ago, but these blue-red decks are just so good at looking at new cards that essentially a third of Samantha's hands is different than what it was last turn, and this just leaves Jesus Loves Unicorns without enough information to make a good decision.
Yeah, and we see an attempt to flip the Concealing Curtains, but in response, Samantha's going to say nope, bounce it back to hand, play that Goldspan Dragon, and get it in for 4, making that first treasure with. And now Jesus Loves Unicorns is aware of the Sajiri shelter in Samantha Murphy's hand, so that can be held up.
Yeah, and some really, really patient play from Samantha here. There was several points at which she could have played that the Sajiri Shelter, made use of the tap land, but recognized that if she keeps her Goldspan protected from removal, the mana advantage she gets is not really something the Black-White deck can keep up with. So prioritizing making sure she could avoid discarding and avoid playing out that Shelter to use it to get protection for her Goldspan later, definitely a decision that she's been rewarded for.
Yes, essentially making your Samantha's Unexpected Windfalls free to cast, replacing with 2 treasures apiece. So it's pretty good to keep Goldspan Dragon alive and well, and Samantha Murphy doing a good job protecting it here. Now, Jesus Loves Unicorns with options about what to do, and it looks like replaying Concealing Curtains will be the choice here, with also a Vanishing Verse, Meat Hook Massacre, triple Silencer, and a Wandering Emperor in hand. Flipping that Revealing Eye, taking another look here, taking the Shelter, but unable to kind of follow up, taking the Shelter, but not able to kill that Goldspan Dragon yet.
Yeah, and this lets her clear the removal, but it also lets Samantha start a new turn with just a ton of mana and several windfalls in hand, and this may well be a combo turn.
Yes, we will see as one Unexpected Windfall reveals a Disdainful Stroke and a Mountain. And thinking about the next spell that Samantha would like to cast on this turn, Salundi Vision an option, and it looks like that's the one she is going to go with.
Yeah, so the windfall would be free in a spot like this, but she's holding on to it just because she wants to make sure she's able to play around drawing a galvanic iteration because windfall pairs particularly well with that.
And it looks like she's going to go with Show of Confidence here, casting another Unexpected Windfall, shipping that Disdainful Stroke, finding a Leer and a Storm-Carved Coast.
Yeah, and with that Leer and the Show of Confidence, I believe Samantha has essentially won this game. I think she's going to make all the mana she needs and then just have the ability to put enough counters on the Goldspan Dragon to present lethal this turn over the next few, game actions.
So we'll see that Leer coming into play. Like you said, still a wealth of treasure here on the side and quite a few choices. Those free Unexpected Windfalls here, discarding a Mountain, drawing a couple more cards, making more treasures, and a Spike Field Hazard on the Goldspan Dragon, because why not?
Yeah, it leaves you up mana even. And at this point, Samantha's clearly really practiced with the deck. She is taking her game actions really quick. There's absolutely zero chance of her timing out, and the game's pretty much locked up here.
Yes, it looks like Jesus Loves Unicorns can't do much besides watch. We see Prismari commands going to draw and discard and make a treasure. Alchemist Gambit, an option now on Samantha's side. just going to cast that next show of confidence because, why play with your food at this point?
Mhm.
So this Goldspan dragon getting a real big. Doesn't look like she's going to make a misclick here as all of those triggers pile on up on that Goldspan dragon. And Goldspan dragon getting real large here. We see.
Yep, I believe the dragon would just be large enough to kill on its own anyway, but if she really feels like it, she can take an extra turn with the Alchemist Gambit, just in case,
Just in case. Gonna Fading Hope the Concealing Curtains just for,
Yeah, I mean, you got to make sure not
Kicks.
to waste that mana off of floating from the treasure. We wouldn't want that.
Waste not want banner burn, right? We'll see a very impressive game number 1 from Samantha Murphy and that Goldspan combo deck. Now, as we move into sideboards, let's take a look at this combo sideboard. What are your thoughts here? It looks like Cinderclasm coming in right away, as well as the eggs, smoldering eggs.
Yeah, this is another example of Orzhov just being kind of a challenging deck to sideboard against, because you want to get rid of you want to bring in interactions for the small creatures, but you also kind of want to go big and bring in Beholds as card advantage. So it's kind of hard to find a balance. Samantha definitely doing a lot of what is pretty conventional with these combo decks is just trimming redundant combo pieces, knowing that post-board you're much more likely to play a grindy value game. So the second Show of Confidence, the second Alchemist Gambit, there's many games where these will come up and you're behind on board and they're not particularly doing anything except when you're comboing. So it makes sense to trim those and bringing in efficient interaction and just more card advantage with Behold that would ideally provide the ability to keep up with what Jesus Loves Unicorns doing.
Yes, and it looks like as we move to Jesus Loves Unicorn sideboard, like you said, we see things like Duress and Go Blank wanting to come in here and shaving a little bit of removal, but bringing in some vanishing verses, and the extra vanishing verse is coming in. The Legion Angel package staying put.
Yeah. Notably, Jesus Loves Unicorns taking out like a copy of Metic Massacre, just recognizing that even though it's technically removal, the 6 mana removal for a Goldspan Dragon is definitely not the way she wants to be fighting this matchup. So recognizing that and taking out what is like one of the clunkier cards. Also, it's worth noting that Samantha, when she went to sideboard, generally went to prioritize card advantage, but got one copy of Lier, recognizing that Lier's not very good against Go Blank, and making sure that she has as few cards as, well, if you'll pardon the pun, get blanked by what Jesus Loves You doing.
Oh, I'm here for it. I am here for it. We see Humiliate taking care of the Lear here on Samantha's side as Behold the Multiverse going to go off into the Foretell zone, and Jesus Love Unicorns going to follow that up with a Duress. But as we see, no third land from the side of Jesus Loves Unicorns at the moment.
Yeah, and well, missing the land drop definitely awkward, but this is also one of the ways in which these blue-red decks and standard shine, where post board, since it's a combo deck, um, Jesus Loves Unicorns, somewhat forced to bring in a bunch of interaction, one-for-one trades with stuff like Duress, but all of that is pretty bad against a game plan of Galvanic Iteration plus Behold the Multiverse, which will just put Jesus Loves Unicorns so far behind on cards.
Yeah, we see a Luminarch Aspirant on Jesus Loves Unicorn side, and a couple of options here. Silver Quill Silencer was the draw and the play for turn. We'll see what the Silencer will name. Jesus Loves Unicorn also with the option to leave up Infernal Grasp, but I can't imagine it feeling good to be stuck on 2 lands to leave up Infernal Grasp and then potentially not have the ability to, or the opportunity to cast it. Oh, but feeling even worse is that Cinderclasm to take care of Jesus Loves Unicorn's entire board. Spikefield Cave going to be the play on Samantha Murphy. side, and it looks like it's Dragon time starting next turn.
Yeah, and Samantha's gonna get to draw, look, 8 cards deep if she wants to, and draw 4 cards with Galvanic Iteration Behold.
Oh
So
my.
with the Satori Shelter, she can definitely set herself up either to play a controlling long game, or quite possibly to just win the game next turn with Goldspan Dragons.
Yeah, you've got to be shaking in your boots on Jesus Loves Unicorn side when you see your opponent go, top, bottom, top with their 4 looks, and it's just like, 3 out of 4, really?
Yeah,
So
I don't know that she has much by way of ability to come back in this spot. What with her being so far behind on mana, I think she missed a few too many land drops to really have a chance at this game. But yeah, that iteration behold really getting rid of any hope that maybe Samantha's going to get stuck on cards.
yes, unfortunately, and that Vanishing Verse unable to take care of the Goldspan Dragon upon targeting it. Samantha getting the treasure, able to cast the Satori Shelter, and it looks like it's Samantha Murphy's game here, whatever she would like to do, and it looks like a Goldspan Dragon gonna come down. Don't normally see those, post combat too often.
Yeah. Heads up play from Samantha here, recognizing she's so far ahead on cards and mana that she just doesn't need to be risky and go for the combo. She can just trade 1 for 1, play out threats, and eventually she'll win. Or she can combo when she has absolutely 0 chance of failing. And there's just absolutely no rush for her.
Yes. And looking at the top 3 with this expressive iteration, it reveals a Leer, a Salundi Vision, and a Jawari Disruption. Now it looks like Leer to the hand and deciding what to put back. And it looks like the Disruption will go back and Salundi Vision will go off to the side to be cast this turn. Gonna take a looky-loo here at the top 6. Another Salundi Vision, a Satori Shelter, and an Unexpected Windfall, the choices. So all 3 not bad choices here.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's probably the Shelter or the Windfall, just staying in short against further removal, or taking the card that will let her dig as much as quickly as possible. So I believe it's one of those 2. The Windfall's particularly potent with the Galvanic Iteration that's in her graveyard, but the Shelter also means that with Jesus Loves Unicorns stuck on 2 mana, there's no way she's going to be able to remove this Goldspan through a protection spell.
Yes, and we'll see Jesus Loves Unicorns falling down to 10. Unable to play anything here with a grip full of 3 drops, only 2 lands on the battlefield. Either that and can't even cast a Meat Hook Massacre for 0 because it's they have a black source and a white source. So she's in a world of hurt here, unfortunately, as we see Ottawa Soaring City come down as a land. Oh.
Yeah, and at this point, Samantha's going to get to look at something like 20 cards with the Lydia, probably more, actually. It's hard to imagine her not winning in this spot.
Yeah, so we see a Kazul's Furry here. It was drawn, so not much else is needed.
That'll do it. Yeah. If needed. Samantha can just attack with the Goldspan, cast Galvanic Iteration to copy the Kazul's Fury, and then double fling the Goldspan at Jesus Loves Unicorn's face.
So we'll see. Samantha looking to play out Leer here and have even more options because why not? And Galvanic Iteration.
Yeah. If you're comboing, you might as well have a little fun with it, At this point, there's no way Samantha's not going to win, but she can try and go essentially infinite and cast the whole deck by finding a show of confidence. Definitely a flashier win than copying a fling.
There's an extra turn in there if she feels so inclined to take it.
Among other things, also another Goldspan. Lots of things, really.
The world is Samantha's oyster at this time. So hanging out and watching her go off, do her thing. I'll tell you, this isn't it's an impressive showing from this deck. The combo, not not as clunky as I'd originally thought it was, and it seems to be very it's smooth. And hey, Goldspan Dragon can just win games on its own.
Yeah, the deck is really good at transitioning seamlessly between the combo aspect of the deck and playing a more mid-rangey controlling game. The deck is very good at trading one for one, interacting with what the opponent's doing, and then out of nowhere just playing 15 spells in a turn from an empty board and winning the game on the spot.
All right, we see that Prismari Command 2 going upstairs to Jesus Loves Unicorn down to 8. That Goldspan Dragon just still waiting, Smoldering Egg, getting some more counters up to 6. And Spike Field Hazard gonna go upstairs as well. Jesus Love Unicorns dropping down to 5. And a flipped Ashmouth Dragon now. Another Spike Field Hazard. Trigger on the Dragon. Down to 3, down to 2. And Prismari Command doesn't even need to attack with the Goldspan Dragon. Who needs it? Kazul's Fury, can do this all manually, and we will see Sam Murphy taking down Jesus Loves Unicorns on Goldspan combo over Orzhov Midrange. 2-0 in a very, very impressive showing. Unfortunately, Jesus Loves Unicorns stuck on the 2 lands in that second game. So a bit of a rough draw, but a very good showing and very well played on the side of Sam Murphy there. Good games to both of our players, and wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah, definitely an impressive showing from the combo deck. Second game and its mana through notwithstanding, game 1 was very impressive, showing the ability of the deck to really just fight through a bunch of discard and interaction just by being full of good card advantage cards.
No, that was phenomenal. And now for our last feature match of the evening, we're going to move on to Division 6. And we are going to start with Doria, our Season 5 champion, actually, here at the VML on Goldspan combo as well. So we get to kind of like sort of run things back here, check it out, see how this deck does in a much different matchup. And I suppose a different pilot as well. Any thoughts, any differences in these lists at all before we jump in?
The list seemed to be much the same from what I can tell, but the matchup's very different because Doria's opponent very much also playing a combo deck, and we're definitely going to have to see more interaction from her deck to not get combo killed by an explosive start from her opponent.
So, now, something that I've noticed in these decks, the Behold the Multiverses are usually almost entirely in the sideboard here, where I feel like a lot of those card draw decks had been a main deck for a little while. Salundi Vision is a new one as well. What are your thoughts about having moved those spells to the sideboard like that?
Yeah, so that definitely comes from a shift in the meta. When this deck was seeing play early on, there was a lot of Epiphany mirrors. There was a lot of like blue-red mirrors in which card advantage was the main thing that mattered. And the few non-aggro decks that were trying to compete against blue-red were doing so on the axis of main deck go blanks and such, which meant you really, really needed a bunch of card advantage in the main. Nowadays, though, the main decks you're seeing are things like runes and various other like mid-rangey decks that don't have go blanks main because Izzet is no longer the deck to beat. So you don't generally need Behold's game 1, but they are your most potent card advantage tool post board in a bunch of matchups where people are trying to interact 1-for-1 a lot.
That is super insightful. All right, let's take a look at our other side of this matchup. We have Lydia on. This one like totally caught me by surprise. Is it vehicles? Definitely an interesting archetype that I've seen some people try to make the vehicles thing work and sort of like a blue shell mind link mech and things like that, but I haven't seen anyone really like commit to it, and I'm happy to see this deck. I can't wait to see this one in action. What are your thoughts here as we start things off? Like, I love the inclusion of like mod Magda as a pilot, tapping and getting the treasure, getting that extra little value. Tezzeret, looking forward to seeing that one in action. But a lot of new Kamigawa cards here. Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah, this is one of, I think, a few different takes we've seen on is it vehicles. There's definitely been more combo centric versions of this deck with something like Calamity Bearer to combo with Mind Link back as a sweet little combo, whereas this deck is more focused on a general synergistic vehicles theme. A card to watch out for though is Lizard Blades, because this deck clearly hasn't completely given up on that combo aspect, and crewing a Mind Link back with a Lizard Blades has a potential to do quite a bit of damage very quickly.
Yeah, some of these cards are, definitely more aggressive in Voltaic Visionary, Rabbit Battery, and Lizard Blade. So let's take a look. I can't wait to see. I get the pleasure of seeing the combo, a Goldspan combo deck in action once again, and Izzet vehicles in action. So that's pretty sweet. We will be watching from the side of our Goldspan combo player Doria, and on the top will be Lydia, our Izzet vehicles deck. And each player taking a look at their 7 and promptly keeping, and we are off to the races. Any thoughts on the openers here?
Yeah, these are slightly slow openers from both players' point of view. Fading Hope really will vary in how it lines up against specific draws from Lydia's deck, but I think generally speaking, it's not one of the cards Doria most wants, but it's also hard for her to mulligan any hand that has like Expressive Iteration and Goldspan Dragon in it. So a solid keep, but slightly clunky and slow starts from both sides. I think all told that favors the Jeskai combo deck a little. I think its interaction is just better in the late game, and it also goes over the top by just combo killing if Lydia's forced to tap out in the mid game.
Yes, and we see Doria with no interest on casting that iteration turn 2, but here on turn 3, gonna take a little look. We see an Alchemist Gambit, a Disdainful Stroke, and an Unexpected Windfall at the top of the library. And thinking about what to add to hand here, and it looks like Unexpected Windfall to hand. What will go back to the library? Looks like the Gambit and Disdainful Stroke. It didn't really matter there. I guess one was just going back and the other one was not being cast. So
yeah, we've seen a lot of misses on a lot of different misses on iteration, just trying to find land today, which is not ideal. That card is generally better than a 2-mana Sorcery Speed Anticipate. But even the fail case, not too bad for a combo deck like this, because even if you're not finding lands, you're digging deeper for cards that will set you up to be able to combo off in a turn or two.
Yeah, we see Fading Hope going to bounce that Mindlink mech back to hand. After Sokensen, the one of Sokensen Crucible of Defiance makes the 2 1/1s, one which crewed, the other one attacked. Doria would take one off of that attack, dropping down to 19 and drawing an Unexpected Windfall. Has the 5 lands in hand, able to play Goldspan and just start getting in here. The question is, will she?
Yeah, with the Valorous stance, I think I'd be pretty tempted to, because she has protection for the Goldspan anyway. And then next turn, she can probably just look to kill with double Unexpected Windfall, ideally finding some Galvanic Iterations or early air to actually use all that mana. But yeah, she's in pretty excellent shape for next turn.
Yes. Lydia, not with too many ways to take care of a Goldspan Dragon in the main. She does have 2 copies of a Braid. Unfortunately, that's not quite enough to take care of the Goldspan Dragon, and not much else going on, honestly, as far as removal in the main. Has some Demon Bolts and things in the side, but
yeah,
not going to help in game 1.
The Surge Hacker mech would have been enough to take down the Goldspan Dragon with no Valorous stance, and if Lydia had already had vehicles in play, but with the Mindlick mech getting bounced last turn, that's no longer the case. And yeah, with the Show of Confidence drawn for turn, I've gotta imagine Doria wins this turn. She can just cast so many spells and look so many cards deep, but if she ever finds a Lier, she just can go through her entire deck. Even if she finds a Galvanic iteration, that's going to be another like 6 cards and a bunch of mana. So she can almost certainly go off this turn if she wants to. She could also play it safer. There's really not much that Lydia could do in this spot to punish her.
Yeah, and it looks like Doria is going to be patient here. Just getting in for 4. And going to Unexpected Windfall before damage.
Yeah, this lets her dig towards finding something to, this lets her dig towards a situation where she casts a big show of confidence before damage, which is useful.
Yeah, we'll see. As the Mindlink mech gets crewed up here. I'm drawing a Prismari command and an expressive iteration. Prismari command, pretty good against this vehicle stacked.
Yeah, it's not ideal that in this spot, if Doria tries to destroy the Mindlink mech that could block, Lydia could just use it to crew the other Mindlink mech to block. That's not perfect. But still leaving Lydia down a card and letting Doria dig further through her deck for Lydia to try and win. So not a bad draw by any stretch of the imagination.
And it looks like that's what she will do. Prismari command destroying the active Mindlink mech, going to choose to draw 2, discard 2, and in response, the second Mindlink mech will be pantsed up here, suited up. Mindlink mech, this is all before blockers. Now needs to discard 2. It looks like iteration and the land are going to hit the bin. Going to hold on to that Lear that she found off of the loot.
Yeah, in this spot, I assume she could essentially look through a whole library if she wanted to. Though time might be a bit of an issue for that, more even than actual ability to do so.
Yes, and Valorous stance here, going to save that Goldspan dragon. Pretty much for free. So will we see Lear this turn?
If we do, that could actually end up being a little dangerous for Doria. Because no, she has the show of confidence that she could use to protect the Goldspan dragon. I don't know that that would be quite enough. The Surge Hacker mech plus the Abrade might give Lydia the ability to actually kill the Goldspan dragon this turn.
I guess we are about to find out. So Surge Hacker mech onto the battlefield, targeting that Goldspan dragon. And Doria thinking about what to do here. Should just let it resolve? Let it resolve. So 2 damage to the Goldspan dragon. And yeah, and a follow-up Abrade. Leaving Lydia with just a Riverglide pathway in hand. So not much left. Everything Lydia's got is on the battlefield right now. But that did just take care of Doria's Goldspan. So that is the second Goldspan to bite the dust.
Yeah, that would be, unfortunately for Lydia, that would be better if Doria did not have a Leia that's going to be able to draw land cards. And plenty of protection for the Leia too.
Yes.
So I do believe Doria is still firmly in control this game.
Yes, we'll see. Expressive iteration, the first play here. And hey, even if this Lear isn't safe, there's a second Lear that Doria can add to hand, just in case things go awry once again. Like, in case of emergency, break this glass, take second Lear. It's good.
And this is what I was talking about with the deck's ability to play a strong control game. Just being able to, in a spot like this, just play out Lear and just drown Lydia on card advantage, even with the combo no longer being online.
Yeah, and looks like activating Den of the Bugbear here. Surge Hacker mech can get crewed up. Costs 4 to crew, so it's not a small amount.
Yeah, and the Prismari command in Doria's graveyard potentially doing a lot of work. because it can both kill the Lizard Blades or the Den and also destroy the Surge Hacker mech, and that just puts Lydia so far behind on board.
Yeah, and that looks like, oh, it looks like deciding to go for the Den of the Bugbear. Oh,
Yep. Either the Den or the Lizard Blades, I think, is a good choice here. Both of them are like somewhat potable threats that somewhat potent threats that are mostly blanked by Lydia anyway. I don't think it really matters which of them she kills here, just as long as she kills one of them plus the Surge Hacker mech. And I think she is firmly in control of this game.
yes, as it looks like it. Expressive Iteration, a dig further into the deck, Prismari Command, Expressive Iteration, and a Salundi Vision at the top of the deck. So that's a lot of gas.
Yep. I mean, Doria's only going to need so much. At this point, she's drowning in a wealth of card advantage. There is absolutely no way she can run out even if she wants to. The question is whether we're going to see an Alchemist Gambit cast soon.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, are we going to see this happen?
I think it's well within Doria's ability to cast a large Gambit this turn, depending on what she plays. But with I don't know if there's still a show of confidence in the graveyard. Oh, the show's still in hand. Oh, then she can absolutely cast the Alchemist Gambit this turn, because she can double show of confidence to Goldspan, once from hand, once from graveyard, and that should give her plenty of mana to cast the Alchemist Gambit if she wants to.
Aw, looks like she's gonna pass on the extra turn, but doesn't need it anyway. So Doria going to take down game number 1 with Goldspan combo over Lydia on Izzet Vehicles. As we move to sideboards, take a look here, and it looks like Strokes out. Too low of a curve on that Izzet Vehicles deck. Anything else that stand out to you here? Looks like Shaving Show of Confidence.
Not really. It's when that game was very interesting to watch when compared with, say, Samantha's game from early on. It really highlights how flexible these combo control decks are, because the two pilots we watched essentially played the deck completely differently. It was like we were watching two different decks. Like, Doria did an excellent job just playing a slow controlling game, one for oneing, and then just drowning Lydia and card advantage with Lier, while Samantha played the deck much more aggressively, and as a combo deck, and was able to reliably win on turn 5 as a result, because she just knew the lines that would let her be able to kill her opponent in a single turn. So it's really interesting to see how there can be like multiple, both really strong and powerful methods of piloting a deck like this that can both yield results but lead to the deck playing vastly differently. It also makes it very difficult to sideboard against, because you don't know quite which direction your opponent's going to go post-board.
Yeah, as we see on Lydia's side, cards like Disdainful Stroke coming in. We'll see if that will be enough to slow down Doria and her Goldspan Dragons. Let's go to game number 2. Doria is our Goldspan combo dragon player on the bottom, and Lydia is our Izzet Vehicles player on the top. Lydia with the play here, getting right in there with Rabbit Battery. One of my favorite cards out of Kamigawa, actually. So just a fun card. It's just an actual rabbit.
Now, something to note for later in the game is Doria took out both of her Alchemist Gambits. Ooh. And she just drew her one Kazul's Fury and played it as her land on turn 1. So if she combos off, she has no way of winning outside of just direct combat damage. She would need to show of confidence before combat and get a lethally big Goldspan, because she's not going to be able to take an extra turn or fling the Goldspan at her opponent.
Yeah, so we see the one Kazul's Fury just coming right in, right down as a land. Doria needing to make the land drops, but has 2 lands and a Spikefield Hazard in hand. Could Spikefield away this Rabbit Battery, but I guess it's not bothering her too much yet, as Goldspan Dragon is the draw for turn on Doria's side. We see Tezzeret waiting in the wings on Lydia's side. Any thoughts on Tezzeret in this format or in general so far?
Tezzeret hasn't looked too promising in this format in general, because there's not many decks that seem like a good home for him, even though he is quite powerful. But that's one of the things this vehicle stack does really well, is it gives a bunch of otherwise powerful cards that don't really have places to shine a place where they can be really powerful. And Tezzeret is one such card.
And we will see Lydia deciding to play Mindlink Mech over Tezzeret, perhaps playing around a card like Jawari Disruption.
And Rabbit Battery does a good job with Mindlink Mech. It allows her to attack this turn by being a haste creature that Mindlink Mech will become a copy of. So that's one of many neat little synergies with this deck.
Oh, that is very cute. I like that. It would give it haste.
It's a little awkward
to reconfigure onto it as well. If
so Lydia opting not to attack here because it's a little awkward that if she had attacked, she wouldn't have had an artifact to tap to Moonsnap prototype, which meant she would not have been able to draw a card with Reckoner Backbuster at end of turn. So recognizing that card draw was more important than the 4 damage she was getting in, so opting to not attack with the Mindlink Mech as a result.
So I like that. Good foresight from Lydia, recognizing board presence here. And we will see Tezzeret coming down. No answer from Doria. A couple of unexpected windfalls. And Reckoner Bank Buster. Here we see a 1/1 pilot onto the battlefield.
Yeah, and this is definitely a good spot for Lydia to be in. Doria is at a fairly high life total, but Lydia has a bunch of interaction for Goldspan dragons and has the ability to apply a lot of pressure very quickly, as she has a bunch of vehicles that she can quickly crew. So definitely a decent spot for her to be in. Unfortunately for her, that Valorous stance from Doria means that Doria's probably going to be able to protect her Goldspan dragon, which might be difficult for Lydia to beat, depending on what draws her.
Yeah, and we'll see both of those treasures from the unexpected windfall used to Jawari Disruption on the Reckoner Bankbuster. The Jawari Disruption having been drawn off of the windfall draws, and Mindlink Mech going to suit up, become a pilot, and get in for 4. It's kind of funky looking. I like it.
Oh, I forgot there was I didn't realize Doria brought in Smoldering Egg. So that actually changes whether it's possible for her to kill without combat damage, because she can just cast her deck and play out Smoldering Eggs and kill with the triggers that deal damage to her opponent.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see this Goldspan dragon coming down, threatening the Tezzeret. Valorous stance up as well on Doria's side. Pass back of the turn.
That second Demon Bolt, though, definitely scary. Allows Lydia to maybe clear the Goldspan through the one Valorous stance, depending on how things play out.
Yeah. It's an expensive turn, though. 6 damage, 6 mana to try to get rid of a singular Goldspan dragon. 6 mana, 2 cards. Where you definitely don't want to fall too far behind on Doria on card advantage. But a Goldspan dragon is the way that, you know, Lydia would probably end up dying this game if she's going to die. So it's important to get rid of.
Yep. And now that at most the one Demon Bolt can be cast this turn, Doria's going to have potentially free reign to try and combo off next turn, though her hand isn't particularly well set up for that, so she'd need to definitely draw something. Either some more card advantage or something like a Liad that just allows her to close to go off.
Yes, and it looks like Demon Bolt just going to get fired off here at Lydia's second main to try to take care of that Goldspan dragon, but Valorous stance right back at you. So that Goldspan dragon is now indestructible until end of turn. So 4 damage don't mean nothing.
And there's no blockers from Lydia, so Doria's going to have free reign to try and go off this turn. Though it's also potential that she just plays out her Smoldering Egg and builds up a bunch of counters on it, and takes over the game that way. There's really not pressure on her to combo kill here.
Oh, and Galvanic Iteration, the draw for turn here.
Iteration is a really powerful draw. It allows her to essentially draw as many cards as she wants and probably win the game. If the game isn't actually over this turn, it'll be effectively over just by virtue of how many cards Doria is going to have.
Yeah, it looks like
how far ahead on board she's going to be.
Yeah, it looks like that's where she's going to start with Galvanic Iteration into an unexpected windfall. And not only all of that, it's also putting 6 counters on the Smoldering Egg, which means, so one more counter, one Spike Field hazard away from having a second 4/4 that shocks something every time you cast an instant or sorcery, or you just cast 5 Goldspan dragons and call it a day.
I believe Doria has exactly enough mana to cast both those Goldspan dragons.
Look at that. It's almost like it was planned this way. Let's see, Goldspan dragon coming down. Will the next one come down as well?
Why not? What harm could playing out another Goldspan dragon do?
What's the worst that could happen? Looks like 4 of the damage going to Tezzeret. Gonna polish off Tezzeret, and 4 of it going face. So Lydia down to 16, gonna lose Tezzeret. And Doria is good. Doesn't need to play another Goldspan dragon. Has Galvanic Iteration waiting in the graveyard and a Cinderclasm in hand just in case things go terribly awry here. But I have a feeling they might not.
Yeah, she has the bases fairly well covered. Lydia probably has a lot of vehicles, not very many things to crew them with. The Sokensen might put in work being able to crew the Mind Link back. So there's a potential for Doria to do something like Demon Bolt the egg and then activate the Sokensen, crew both the Mind Link mechs and the Bank Buster. And that would give her lethal, except for the fact that if Lydia does that, then Doria can just Iteration double Cinderclasm, and that prevents her from dying and wipes the board. Granted, it will wipe both her Goldspan dragons away as well, so the board will be pretty even, but at least she won't be dead.
Right? It's like, it could be worse, I guess, right? It looks like first Mind Link mech coming down here, going to copy something, but Cinderclasm. Kicking a Cinderclasm here, crewing up the other Mind Link mech.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't believe this is going to quite work out for Doria, because all of Lydia's creatures that are actually untapped will be 3 or more toughness, and yeah, that's just lethal damage.
Unfortunately, not enough from the side of Doria, so that means that we get a game number 3 here. Looks like Doria, though, happy with her sideboarding choices, so going to move on. Lydia happy with hers as well, so we're just going to get right into it and take a look. Ooh, I guess like after taking a second and looking at the hands, they weren't as bad as I thought. They at least each had 2 lands and not 1, but
But yeah, not ideal hands for either player.
Right. Lydia will keep her 7. Doria down to 6. Starting out with Rabbit Battery on the side of Lydia. Also double Lizard Blades, a Magda, Shadow Skull Smashing, Demon Bolt, and an Island. As Doria just plays a tap land and passes the turn. Has some options for later, but nothing going on right now.
The Spike Field has likely going to be pretty good against Lydia's hand of all X1s.
I would say so, as it takes care of that Magda Brazen Outlaw. Drawing another land here on Doria's side. Taking a look at the hand, has a choice of Expressive Iteration, Prismari Command, and going to go with the Expressive Iteration, revealing a Fading Hope, another Expressive Iteration, and a land. What are your thoughts on what to take here?
I think all of the options are pretty tempting. I don't know that I want the Fading Hope. I feel like Doria's hand is pretty well set up to play a card advantage game, so just throwing away a card to interact might not be ideal. But at the same time, making sure she doesn't fall too far behind is also nice, so it's close. I think I'll lean towards taking the iteration and the land, which is exactly what Doria's done. Just recognizing that with that expressive iteration, she has a 2-for-1. With the next one she's going to cast, she has a 2-for-1. Lydia has just like a bunch of small creatures that are going to get 2-for-1 in turn by Prismari command. So just a lot of value to be gained for Doria.
Yeah, and like you said, we see that Prismari command just waiting in the wings, and uh, Prismari command even better when you can cast it a second time, as Lear is the draw on Doria's side. So Doria's task right now is to stay alive, and she has the tools to be able to do that right now and still at a healthy 18 life, while Lydia is at 20 with one Demon Bolt away in the Foretell zone, but just a Lizard Blades and a Shatter Skull smashing in hand.
Yeah, and this is something of an awkward situation for Lydia's deck with regards to how it's functioning. Lydia really wants to have a bunch of vehicles and then be putting things like the Lizard Blade and the Rapid Batteries in them, rather, or like Deserets to make these things more powerful, rather than the situation she has right now, where she's just drawn a bunch of Lizard Blades and Rapid Batteries. They're not very impactful on their own.
And we'll see Lizard Blades attempting to reconfigure onto the Rabbit Battery here. It's a question of Doria allowing something like this to happen. Will not, doesn't need to. So looks
Yeah,
like
and Doria clearing both the Lizard Blades here, leaving Lydia with just a Rabbit Battery is so brutal. That card's applying close to no pressure on its own, so Doria has all the time in the world and has just got a pile of card advantage, so she's going to bury Lydia under.
it looks like another Prismari command the draw here, but gonna fire off that expressive iteration right away, revealing a Hall of Storm Giants, a Cinderclasm, and a Salundi Vision. Again, interesting choices here.
Yeah, not ideal choices. I think Doria would have liked to have in an ideal world, an untapped land so that she could play out Prismari command, hold up Prismari command for Lydia's turn without losing a card. But I mean, still at least 3 cards. She's going to get the Hall plus the Syndiclasm, so she's not going to. So she's still going up a card, and at this point, she could win with basically anything, given how few cards Lydia has left.
It looks like choosing to bolt in the Shatter Skull the Hammer Pass rather than playing out an island to activate that Den of the Bugbear and leave up Demon Bolt. So Den of the Bugbear getting in here for 4 and down to 13.
Yeah, Doria could have spent the Syndiclasm there to clear up the 1/1s, but just recognizing that there's no rush. Lydia is applying close to no pressure, and she can just wait to clean up the Den of the Bugbear plus the Rabbit Battery with the Syndiclasm at some point. So there's no need to waste it now.
Right. And the Cinderclasm is a one of in in Doria's deck as well. So something that you want to hold on to. I suppose it's a one of, and then you play Lear, and then you can play it again. So
Yeah, it's a one-off in terms of when you draw it, but definitely not a one-off in terms of how many times you play it with the Lier and the Galvanic iteration.
right. And we see Mindlink Mech copying that Rabbit Battery, or at least attempting to copy that Rabbit Battery. But Prismari command in the hand of Doria onto the stack, destroying target artifact. And it's just a question of what else Doria would like to do here.
Yeah, the obvious choice would be to deal 2 damage here, but Doria recognizing that the 1/1s actually don't matter. Eventually, she's going to cast a Syndiclasm, and at that point, they'll just die incidentally. So it's pretty free for her to just try and use this opportunity to try and find more action, maybe a Goldspan Dragon to close out the game, recognizing that those 1/1s just don't matter at all.
Yeah, Doria counting up her lands here. Gonna dump that extra Lear. Had considered dumping that extra Lear. Looking like it will be. The Lear and the land? No. The land and the galvanic iteration. Still getting some value off of that discard. And like you said, it has Syndiclasm up.
That is, I think, a really heads-up play from Doria. The
Mhm.
second Lear may appear useless, but the truth is that if even one Lear sticks, it doesn't matter whether you have another dead Lear in hand. You're just going to win the game anyway. So recognizing that if she holds on to that Lear, if she keeps the second Lear, like plays around one of her Lears getting removed maybe, then she can still win the game with the second Lear through a removal spell. And if the Lear doesn't get removed, she's winning the game anyway.
Yeah, and I love this Lear coming down. We see that Spike Field Hazard that we saw on turn 2 earlier in the game take care of the Magda, now take care of that Rabbit Battery. Lydia does have the Den of the Bugbear in hand as well as a Goblin, but can't do everything.
Yeah, Moonsnap prototype, not ideal. Right. Moonsnap
excuse me,
prototype can
because
tap
it's
creatures as well.
creatures. Yes, it's
So
like
that
Springleaf.
definitely works.
Yes. Artifact or
This
creature.
is a slightly awkward situation for Doria, where she could get punished by Lydia drawing another piece of interaction for the Syndiclasm, but she should probably be fine, I think. Syndiclasm can just clean up the board, and at some point the Lydia will take over. Yeah, another Rabbit Battery. Probably the nail in the coffin for Lydia, because just another thing she's going to commit to the board this turn where she's going to get Syndiclasmed.
Yes, when you are playing just so many X1s, it's only so much your deck can do against a card that's like Cinderclasm. And like I said, it is a one of in Doria's deck. Doria does get to look at a lot of cards. Doria does get to do a lot of digging, but it is still a one of. So yeah, you have to like hold out hope and just be like, well, I just hope, maybe she won't draw it.
Yeah, I don't think I can really afford to play around this Syndiclasm in a spot like this with there being only one copy, but since Doria does have it, the game is basically over.
Yes. So
there's the 3 mana to pay for the Hermit as well, and next turn Doria is going to get to resolve a Lier and just have interaction for basically anything Lydia does, or a Goldspan Dragon,
or a Goldspan Dragon. Like it's the rich get richer.
I don't think it really matters which one she plays. I think she's got this one.
No, that feels pretty good. Putting Goldspan onto an empty board, a mostly empty board, and getting across. Lydia down to 10. Lydia's life total wasn't that high to begin with. I believe bolted in both of the red lands. Mog did the draw on Lydia's side will also be the play. Tapping down.
And there's a couple of small creatures, and you know what small creatures are weak to? Syndiclasm. So Doria has the opportunity, if she wants to Lier and just flash back that Syndiclasm. Yeah. Or she could try and go for the win this turn, but I suspect she's more likely to play it safe.
Do we make the smart decision or the fun decision, Doria? Which one will it be? Looks like she's just going to get in for 4. That Benevolent Geist and Magda on the other side as Lear comes down, and so does the Graveyard. I see a lot of iterations, a lot of Prismari commands, and that Cinderclasm waiting there.
Yeah, there's any number of different ways that the Doria can win this. I don't think Lydia has much of a chance in this spot.
No, we'll see. Tezzeret here on the side of Lydia. So in response to that, it looks like Cinderclasm from Doria. She's considering it.
It's a close decision. Huh. I think Doria might actually have lethal here. The 6 mana. So if she Galvanic Iteration, then double Prismari Command, 2 damage to Lydia, make a treasure, and then cast the other Prismari Command for 2 damage and make a treasure, that's actually exactly 6 damage to Lydia. So Doria does have lethal if she wants to go for it.
And I think Lydia does realize that, so she will concede that game number 3 to Doria. Doria will take it down, a Goldspan combo, 2 games to 1 over Lydia on Izzet Vehicles. Good games to both of our competitors there. And that will do it for this evening. That was a pretty wild night. We watched a lot of 2-1s. So a lot of competitive decks though. We
Yeah.
saw Goldspan combo coming out on top in both of the matches that we got to see it. Mono White Aggro coming out on top over a Rakdos Sacrifice deck, and Orzhov Midrange taking down a Naya Runes deck as well. So a lot of variety. I like it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of different decks, and like you said, a lot of competitive magics. The meta definitely looks far from solved, and a lot of different decks could go on to be the best deck in standard. So I'm really glad we have a healthy standard meta again.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with this season. But before we go, I want to give a big thanks to our sponsors at the NRG series for being awesome and supportive of the VML for many seasons now, for Wizards of the Coast, also for being awesome and supportive of us. And Good Luck High Five. Both Megan and Maria are totally kick butt, and I love them both. Great podcast. If you haven't checked them out yet, make sure you do. Pop on over to them at JesusLovesUnicorns on Twitter. They are great. A big thank you to our most wonderful producer, Phoebe, who is an absolute rock star, an absolute superhero. Like, puts this stuff together every week, is somehow able to hurdle us cats and make sure that all of our video and audio, that everything works, that everything is fantastic. Make sure you give Phoebe a follow here on Twitch, Code Indigo. She is phenomenal. Give her a huge shout out, a big shout out to our admin team, our casters, our players, our viewers. All of you out there are fantastic. And Arya, I'd like to take this moment to wish you the best of luck in the set championship next weekend.
Thank you.
Is there anybody you'd like to thank or say hi to before we go?
No, just thank you so much for doing such a wonderful job as always.
And to you as well. And we hope to catch you all next week. Same bad time, same bad channel, twitch.tv/VMLMTG, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.